Salofalava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susana Suisuki. Coming up, Bougainville's independence process enters final leg. Also,
where the next economic revenue stream will come from.
Pacific leaders urged to look beyond future gains of deep-sea mining, and cannabis movement in Fiji demands law reform. A member of Papua New Guinea's bipartisan parliament committee overseeing discussions on the outcome of Bougainville's vote for independence says the process is in its last leg now. The latest talks between representatives of Bougainville and PNG through their Joint Supervisory Body, or JSB, happened in Port Moresby on Wednesday. It was the first JSB meeting since a PNG parliamentary bipartisan committee concluded nationwide consultations on Bougainville's political future. Sir Puka Temu was one of the PNG MPs conducting those consultations. He spoke about what's next to Johnny Blades, who began by asking him if people in other parts of PNG are open to Bougainville becoming independent.
When we went to Morobe, one of the biggest provinces in the country, the leaders came out and said, give them independence. When we went to East New Britain, one of the very well-educated provinces, they say give them independence, but give us autonomy. Yesterday at the JSB meeting, the JSB concluded under the two co-chairs, our Prime Minister and President Toroama, and agreed to a timeline. So by June, the report should reach the Parliament.
Once it's in the Parliament, does it need to be discussed? I mean, it doesn't go straight to a vote or anything. What's the process?
There is a grey area on the question that you have raised, and that is once it is on the notice paper in Parliament, how does Parliament process that agenda on the notice paper, the results of the referendum? And so yesterday the JSB tasked the both speakers and the bipartisan committee to sit down together and come back with a process before March.
There's so much hanging on this question, and I know you obviously have a good handle on the history of Bougainville. You know it well. There's a lot of MPs, a lot of MPs who are quite new. They're quite young. They may not know the history. I think, is that a concern that maybe?
That's a grievous concern that Bougainvillean leaders also re-echoed yesterday. The task is now given to the bipartisan committee. So by January, we should have a booklet that contains all the history leading up to 1975 independence, including the 17th century history, Bougainville, Solomon Islands, and Samoa history, and then coming up to the conflict 1988 to 1999 and the peace agreement in 2001. And then the referendum in 2019, and now 6 years after the referendum. So we are at the last leg of the process because the Constitution authorizes a consultation to take place on the referendum result.
President Toroama from Bougainville has voiced concern about some of the JSB resolutions are being sidelined or ignored. Was that discussed yesterday? And, what did the national government say?
One of the big issues was the Restoration Development Grant that the national government gives to Bougainville every budget cycle. President Toroama raised it at the meeting for Prime Minister to move that fund directly to the government rather than through the regional member for Bougainville, which has been what is happening. So PM has agreed to that. So hopefully those administrative matters should be sorted out. And so we focus on the final leg.
Former Cannabis president and leading climate justice advocate Anote Tong says the deep-sea mining industry presents unique challenges for Pacific leaders trying to secure economic resources in the face of the climate crisis. One regional expert says leaders must look beyond simplistic economic choices to help navigate the industry. Te Wila Fortai has more.
Anote Tong smiles tentatively as he talks about his own nation's interactions with the deep-sea mining industry.
As Secretary to the Ministry of Natural Resources, I was part of the process of, the 1980s, early 1980s. Given our hunger for revenue, the prospect of digging up these nodules and deriving much-needed revenue was a very exciting prospect. But of course, the technology and the economics were not in the right place at that time.
The nodules he's referring to are potato-sized rocks sitting at the bottom of the ocean in deep-sea mining areas like the Clarion-Clipperton Zone. They contain rare minerals like nickel and cobalt used to make smartphones, electric batteries and weapons. Kiribati alongside Nauru, Tonga and Cook Islands have special rights in the zone, which is located in international waters of the Pacific Ocean. The Cook Islands also has nodules in its own waters. Here's Anote Tong again.
It's just come up more recently, I think, as the prospect of mining in the deep sea bed has become a reality. And so I'm in a very difficult position because of my own conservation ideas, and I'm glad that I'm not there as a leader to make that decision. It's got to be understood that deep sea bed mining for countries which have been struggling to balance a budget.
The desire to generate revenue and economic resiliency is not individual to Kiribati. Cook Islands Prime Minister Mark Brown has pointed to university scholarships and infrastructure improvements like good roads as anticipated benefits of deep-sea mining for his people. But as regional expert Maureen Penduelli warns, the path to possible revenue gains from the industry is not straightforward or without risks.
I think that our countries haven't thought through what I would say productive economic industries, for example, in the case of tuna fisheries, and how deep sea mining might affect both the kinds of places where tuna migrates, where tuna is caught, the spawning of tuna, both to understand this from an economic imperative that our countries are looking at.
Ms. Penduelli is an executive committee member of Fiji-based NGO Dawn. She says leaders should utilise regional institutions to better understand the potential risks and benefits of deep-sea mining.
I think governments need to go to Foreign Fisheries Agency, for example, to commission this kinds of critical independent scientific research that looks at how deep-sea mining could affect tuna fisheries in the Pacific, to relook at that whole kind of leaning into the potential revenue stream that could come from mining.
Anote Tong agrees and says robust and up-to-date information is critical.
How can we develop systems to ensure that, one, we provide the science that is needed in order to make a rational decision? Two, if and when it starts happening, to ensure that the resource owners, Pacific Island countries that are hoping to reap the benefits, do.
Maureen Penduelli says a big part of that is understanding the liability and responsibility of Pacific countries as resource owners.
So I think that there is still not enough thinking through what does liability look like for a country like Kiribati or Nauru or Tonga for that matter, Cook Islands, in the event that there is an accident or something goes wrong with a contractor at ISAC. And I think that's a disservice to our countries, particularly when they're looking at where the next economic revenue stream will come from.
Whatever comes next for the industry in the region, both Anote Tong and Maureen Penduelli are clear. Any mining must help, not hinder efforts to address the climate crisis.
The founder of a fringe cannabis movement in Fiji is calling for the decriminalisation of the use and cultivation of marijuana. Cannabis Fiji has gathered more than 700 signatures in an online petition that it started 8 months ago, demanding legislation reform. While the possession, use and sale of cannabis is illegal in Fiji, the group's creator, Anare Tuinjaki, says they want freedom to be able to use medical, industrial and recreational cannabis without being vilified. He spoke to Calvin Anthony about the movement's plans, which includes the release of non-violent cannabis prisoners.
I started this movement the very minute the announcement came that they were about to legalize hemp. So as soon as they were about to legalize hemp, I saw the opportunity there where I could grow a social media movement.
What is it that this movement of yours is asking the government?
Well, basically for freedom. Freedom to be able to use medical, industrial, and recreational cannabis without being vilified. Also, we're trying to get prisoners relief for the use of non-violent cannabis or the cultivation.
So how do you see that work, particularly when the possession, sale, and use of marijuana is illegal in the country?
Well, first things first, the legislation would have to fall in line with my act. So once the legislation is done, then you'd have, it's called a framework, yes? Then you have the framework which comes with the implementation to ensure that everything runs smoothly. So right now it's just an idea I'm putting out there and we're pushing for. So for me to actually give you the details, it's that's a big ask of you.
This is a very sensitive topic in the context of Fiji. There's a big hard drugs issue in the country, and many young people are getting addicted. There's so many social ills.
Yes.
In your view, is it okay for this particular push that you are calling for?
Look at the data. Everything I push out, I back up with data. If you go and look, if you do a good research, every country which has legalized cannabis, all the crime rate has gone down. All the hard drug use has gone down. There are going to be naysayers, but there are going to be naysayers out there, and they're going to say cannabis is bad and this and this and that. But that is just propaganda. They've been indoctrinated, and what I'm doing is trying to hit back on that indoctrination and give them the truth.
I guess the next question then is, you have this petition up, you have these asks from the government, you have just over 730 people who have actually signed up to this petition. So what is the next phase?
Keep pushing for the numbers to go up. Get a NGO going. Through the NGO, try to get it will happen. So we will make an NGO, especially for cannabis, and we will get a party elected where it's 100% focused on the reform of cannabis.
Fiji police have a zero-tolerance policy against possession, use and cultivation of marijuana and make frequent arrests and targeted operations to eradicate large-scale marijuana cultivation. Those caught with it face severe penalties under the country's illicit drug laws, including life imprisonment. That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā sui fua.